it over to Chairman Elmore.
Very good. Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Elmore. I'm the chair of the Connecticut Historic Preservation Council, and I'm calling to order this month's meeting. With me this morning are the following council members: Beth Ackley, Via Duce, Paul Butkus, Margaret Carnell, myself, Christine Nelson, Vice Chair, Sarah Nelson, and Sarah Sportman. We have a quorum, so we'll get started. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's format and review of public comment procedures. Given the online format of today's meeting, and for those who are visitors today, I want to review and explain our procedures. The order of the presentation. I will read each motion and ask the motion to be moved and seconded. Staff will present the agenda item to the council. Council members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Called upon by staff, a representative of the organization may offer statements or address council's questions. For members of the public who wish to speak to the agenda item, we ask that you identify yourself and your affiliation. After all questions have been addressed and statements made, a roll call vote will be taken. If members of the public have letters and/or written statements they wish to submit for the record, please email them to Jonathan Kinney. His email address is jonathan.kinney@ct.gov. The Historic Preservation Council takes statements from members of the public, but does not respond to questions. Lastly, please only address the particular agenda item being addressed at that time. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's policy regarding conflict of interest. The Historic Preservation Council votes on matters which provide leadership, service, and economic benefits to the property owners, consultants, local governments, and not-for-profit organizations. Given this responsibility and to maintain the highest professional standards in the discharge of our duties, it is important to maintain a strong code of ethics for all council members and department employees. In order to avoid possible violations of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statements, it is necessary for the council to be aware of any situations in which there is a real, potential, or apparent conflict of interest involving anyone here. A conflict of interest may occur when a public official's participation in agency matters results in personal financial gain. All council and staff have been provided with a copy of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statement and governing state statutes. Having reviewed them and today's agenda, members of the council and staff are now asked to disclose any affiliation with entities or projects that may create a conflict of interest as defined by the agency policy and pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-79 through 1-89, entitled Code of Ethics for Public Officials. Once disclosed, the member or staff may recuse themselves from that particular agenda item. Having read this statement, are there any council or staff members that would like to disclose a conflict of interest to any of the items on today's agenda? Sarah?
Thank you, Tom. I want to recuse myself from 5B1 for the town of Scotland because our firm has been involved with doing work on the Scotland Town Hall.
Okay, very good. Beth Ackley? Beth, if you're talking, you're muted. We cannot hear you. Beth, we still cannot hear you. She's working on it, people. So while she's working on that, I also need to recuse myself from 5B1 Town of Scotland because my firm is working on a site master plan for the town hall. And as a result, Christine Nelson will be leading that application for your review. 5B2. Okay, great, Beth. Thank you. Let me just make a note of that here, please. Okay, very good. Anyone else, council members or staff members? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed. So recused members will be asked to leave the meeting platform. Staff will send a text message to members when they may return to the meeting. For council members being recused, please make sure that staff has your cell phone so that staff can communicate via a text message. So the first item on the agenda is that, no, wait a second. Hang on a second, I'm getting myself confused here. The first item on the agenda is 5A1, unfinished action. It's an HRF grant, the Church of Christ Congregational Restoration and Installation of the Steeple, located at 6 Litchfield Road in Norfolk, Connecticut. I have been told by staff that they would like to table this again for another month. So by a 2/3 vote, we can recall this item to the table and immediately table it again for 1 month. May I have a motion to recall this item to the table and immediately table it again for a month?
Marguerite Carnell, so moved.
And a second? Sarah, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, second. My hand went up faster than my microphone got activated.
All right, very good. So with that, we'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley, and this is a roll call vote to bring it to the table and immediately table it again. Beth Ackley?
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
Via Ducier?
Aye.
Paul Butkus?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell? I will abstain. Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Very good. Motion tabled. Thank you, everyone. All right, the next agenda item is 5B1, so I'm going to step out. Jonathan, since this is the first time I've done this, do I close out of Teams altogether and then jump back on when we're done?
Yes, that would be preferable.
All right, very good. Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
I will text you and Sarah when we're done.
All right, have fun, Christine.
Thanks. I'm frozen, or is he gone?
I think he's just frozen.
Okay. Good morning. Next on the agenda is item 5B1. This is at this is an application for a survey and planning grant with the town of Scotland. Architectural plans and specifications at 9 Devotion Road. There was a correction in the application or in the agenda item, which I hope you all saw. The grant amount has increased from $40,000 and $40,040 to $50,000. Let me read the motion. The motion is the Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown, which is $50,000. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. I mentioned it was the town of Scotland, and the project description is consulting services of a CFR qualified architect and team to develop bid level plans and specifications to support restoration projects for Scotland Town Hall, 1840 and 1896 at 9 Devotion Road in Scotland. let's see, do we take a motion now? I mean, do we vote on the motion now or we wait to the end?
We move to discuss or move to,
You need a motion and a second to bring it to the table for
All
discussion.
right, could I have a motion to discuss and a second?
Marguerite, so moved.
Paul, second.
Thanks, Paul. All right, Mary.
great, thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning. So as Christine mentioned, I did put some corrections, or a corrected application in Dropbox on Monday, and I think Jonathan sent it out via Tom as well. And it all basically had to do with the budget. This is one of our non-matching raised cap grants for plans and specifications that will support an historic restoration fund grant. It's also going to support some other applications that are already in the works that will be reviewed by our office because they are state funding, Community Investment Fund, which is not the same as our CIA. I don't know if the grantee's been awarded that, but if they are, that's a project that we will review. So so these plans will be reviewed 9 ways to Sunday, as they say. But the budget, we were trying to nail down the correct budget, and that was the nature of the changes I made. So it is estimated that the actual cost of all these plans and specs will be a little over 100,000. So the applicant is asking for the maximum non-matching cap, and they do have the funds to make up the difference. I believe Gary Greenberg, who's the first selectman of the town of Scotland, I think he may be on the call to answer any questions or concerns that I can't.
I have a quick question, Mary.
Yep.
There's a line in the application that says, in 2020, the current selectmen brought their concerns to the attention of Congressman Joe Courtney, and in response to his request, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded the town a grant of $700,000 for town hall renovations. Thus, your 7 Ways to Sunday's review, I think, Mary. The town then re-engaged the original team to design a complete renovation with the original goal, historic preservation, increased functionality in mind. That's a little ambiguous to me. Is the current team already started designing, or is that sort of a future forward comment?
I don't believe they've already started the design, but the budget is based on their proposal.
Okay.
For I don't even think they have schematic. I think they have schematic, but through construction documents. But so
Okay.
no, it hasn't begun yet.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm curious, just doing what I do, it mentioned some settlement and some foundation challenges. Is there a sense of the scope of that design work? Is it a major re-support of the foundations?
I don't know yet. I think that the team is going to have to engage an engineer, a structural engineer, to determine that, unless Gary is here and has more definitive information. But I don't believe this whole project has been not ongoing. It's been sort of trying to start for about 10 or 20 years, and so I don't think they're still right at the beginning.
Right.
But I can check on that.
Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, thank you. That helps me understand what's going on.
Mary, this
Mary?
is Jonathan. I don't see Gary on the call, so I just wanted
Okay.
to let you know.
Okay.
All right, Marguerite.
Yes, I have a question for Mary. Mary, on the last page of the package here, it mentions a small building behind the town hall to be demolished, and I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Oops, sorry about that. Hold on, I just got out. I have not done a site visit, so I don't know the nature of that building, whether it's contributing or non-contributing. I do know that any project that's going to be reviewed by our office, especially under SEPA, which is not Protection Act but Policy Act, that demolition will be reviewed, and a recommendation will be made. I can find out. I did not ask Gary about that. because I was working on the budget, but I can find out about that. But as this project moves along, that would be a component that'll be reviewed for sure.
Okay, so if we're voting on this application, we're not necessarily voting in approval of demolition of that building, obviously.
Right.
Okay.
Because the resulting plans and specifications, well, they might not reflect it, but any plan that comes before us will reflect that. And so we will, staff would at that point review and, well, depending on the nature, not recommend. But yeah, no, that's not what this
Right.
motion is for.
Okay, thanks.
V.
Oh, actually, my questions was answered a couple answers ago. I had a question about, it was unclear as far as if the work was ongoing or it was going to start. So, and I was not sure how the gap was going to be filled, but I think the town is filling the gap and it has not started. Those were my questions. Sorry, I'll put my hands down.
Great. Mary, do you have anything else to say?
For this, we hope you approve it. No, except that, I mean, I do feel comfortable about, the consultants that are working on the project or that will be, and also just the fact that it will get multiple perspectives of review from staff. So I think it's in good hands as far as from an historic preservation standpoint.
Okay, see Paul's hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question. Mary, this is like one of the examples where it's a non-matching grant, but it's actually, 50% of the total project cost. So it's a good illustration that projects cost more than funds that are awarded. So just wanted to make that point that, a lot of times when you do see non-matching grants, sometimes there's a perception that the project is going to cost less, but this definitely illustrates that while it's not a requirement, it actually is justifying the maximum award.
No, that's great. That's a great point to make, and that was one of the things we took into consideration when we were thinking about how much to raise the cap, and as we can see, it's still not enough, but we don't have unlimited funds. And that is a problem with non-matching grants, at a lower amount, is that either the applicant thinks that's going to pay for the whole kit and caboodle, and then they get kind of in a jam. That's generally why we do require a match as well, because we can't raise the cap that much.
All right, great. I'm going to call for a vote. You know what, you wouldn't believe how organized Tom is. He even organized me. Okay, I'm going to conduct a roll call vote in alphabetical order. Beth Ackley.
Aye.
Vincenza Adduci. Did I say your last name right, V?
You did. Aye.
Okay. Beth Burgess. Is Beth here?
On vacation.
Okay. Paul Butkus.
Aye.
Marguerite Cornell.
Aye.
Tom has recused himself. I vote aye. Sarah has recused herself, and Sarah is not with us, right? Oh, wait. Hi, Sarah.
Aye. Aye.
And it's an aye. All right. The motion carries.
Great.
Thank you. And congratulations. I know it's a long haul.
Thank you, Christine. I just texted Tom and Sarah to come back to the meeting.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'll see you back at the end of the next one.
All right, I'm back. Are we ready to go?
We're ready, and Christine did a great job.
All right, I'm not surprised. Good job, Christine. All right, next item on the agenda is 5B2. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, New Britain Museum of American Art. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architect and team to develop bid-level plans and specifications to support restoration projects for the Grace Judd Landers House, dated 1903, located at 56 Lexington Street, New Britain, Connecticut. Grant amount for $26,000. May I have a motion to bring this table? May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
This is Sarah, so moved.
And a second?
Christine, so moved. Or not moved, so seconded.
All right, and to discussion?
Trying to get my camera on. Good morning again, everybody. So this is a second application on this agenda that will be the non-matching raised cap grant because the applicant does plan to use these documents to apply for an HRF grant. This is focusing mainly on the tile roof of the building. This budget was provided by the project architect, so we're confident that it will be sufficient. Jeff Mainville from New Britain Museum is here, and I thought I saw Taylor Hanson, who I think is their consultant.
Yeah, I'm here as well. Good morning,
Okay,
everyone.
great.
We're here. Good
Great.
morning.
To answer any questions or concerns that I can.
Good, thank you, Mary. Questions or comments from council members? Sarah?
Thank you, Tom. First off, I think it's a worthy project. So the question is just trying to understand a little bit more about the work. And my question is, on this survey work, which is so important to do, is an actual roofer going to be involved, sort of removing the tiles, doing sampling of the membrane and any mastic testing for hazardous materials?
Taylor, you want? Okay.
Yeah,
Are you going to take that, Taylor, or do you want me to?
yeah, certainly. Good morning,
Oh.
Sarah, and hi to the council. Thank you for the opportunity to share the project. So yes, the architects are engaged with a roofing consultant, Suska Roofing, and they are very involved with the design and understanding, making sure the investigation uncovers any, hazardous materials and including that in the bid documentation and specs.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else, council? Questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve this application. Via Ducier,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Motion carries.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B3. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Golden Hill United Methodist Church. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architect and team to prepare a condition assessment of the Golden Hill United Methodist Church, dated 1929, located at 210 Elm Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Grant amount of $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Paul so moved.
Thank you, Paul. And a second?
Marguerite, second.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, this is Jonathan. Do you want to give Beth Ackley just 1 second to come back into the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, just before you proceed with the presentation.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't want to hold everybody up, so we'll catch Beth up when she comes back.
Okay.
Oh, there
Mary?
she is.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Mary, before you get started, I'll just bring Beth up to speed.
Yeah.
You're not going anywhere.
Beth, while we were getting you back up, I went so fast. I introduced the project, read the motion. Paul moved it to bring it to the table for discussion, and Marguerite seconded. And that's as far as we've gotten. And now Mary's going to present it.
Okay, great. So staff does recommend approval of this application. Aaron and I began talking with members of the church or representatives a while back because they came to us for looking for funding for windows. And our partner, Circuit Rider, Mike Farina, went and did a site visit and noticed that, you know, as usual, it's not just, you know, one thing, it could be more. So he did recommend that they kind of back up and do a condition assessment. The church has been consulting with or getting information from contractors, but they're interested in seeking, I guess, the best treatment recommendations for the historic fabric of their church. And Mike did come away from that meeting very confident that the windows could be restored. There might be some selective replacement in kind required, especially for horizontal features like the window sills. But so we'd like, you know, to focus on the windows, but also see what else might raise a red flag during the inspection. John Mocklet is here. I don't know if Kyle LaBeouf is here. We've been talking to them over the last couple months about this to perhaps answer any questions that I can't.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Council members, any questions or comments? Sarah?
Thank you, Tom. First off, I think it's an incredibly worthy project, and I'm delighted to see the church going forward in this way. And this comment is really directed at the expectation about what the final product is going to be, because the grant amount is $20,000. It's a huge building complex, and they want to look at many systems, but they subsequently, sort of deeper down in the narrative, it talks about a comprehensive review. And my comment would just be at that level that we're funding them, it's going to be sort of a broad overview and not a comprehensive deep dive.
Right. 40,000, you know, doesn't necessarily go a long way, so to speak, especially for a building this large. But knowing that the applicant has some specific concerns, I would recommend that they kind of fashion the RFP to kind of, you know, tier it or whatever, and see what they can get.
Okay, great.
That would be a good approach.
Beth?
Somewhat in the same vein as Sarah, but diving into the masonry a little. It appears to be granite, and it appears that some of the buttresses are getting some water in them, which is a very common thing. And one of the common things with granite buildings is that Because granite is such a hard stone, they tend not to be breathable, and a lot of times the granite will become delaminated from the back, and it's masked very well. So I wanted to just encourage the applicant to, when they're writing the RFP, to describe the masonry investigation a little bit. If they want to do it thoroughly, probably a lift investigation to look at the higher up portions of the building would be good. Seeing what's happening in that bottom area, it's indicative that there might be an issue there.
So Beth, got a question for clarification. Being the landscape architect and the ground guy, you said a lift to get up high to look at the bottom. What does that mean?
Sorry, the bottom is suggesting that there might be some deeper masonry issues, and we can access the bottom. Meaning the bottom can be accessed obviously from the ground, but obviously the water's coming from somewhere. So getting up higher, knowing that there might be something going at the ground, also looking at the higher up areas.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman. Sarah, are you with us? Sarah Sportman?
Oh, sorry, I said aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B4. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Unitarian Society of Hartford, project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian to prepare a National Register nomination for Unitarian Society of Hartford Meeting House dated 1964, located at 50 Bloomfield Avenue in Hartford. Grant amount for $16,700. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Also moved.
Thank you, Paul.
Christine, second.
Thank you. And Mary.
Okay, great. So staff does highly recommend this application for approval because we do want to fulfill one of our state plan goals, which is diversifying resources that are listed on the National Register, both from a social or history perspective, but also an architectural perspective. And so it's always nice to add newer buildings to the register as they become eligible. And also to that end, because we do not ask for a match for other designation projects such as HRIs, and because we do want to ensure that we can meet that state plan goal of continuing to list resources to the National Register, this is a non-matching grant. And so I believe Mary Falvey is here, and I think several members of the church, I think, are here to answer any questions. And Jenny, I think, is also on the call. We did consult, obviously, the applicant did consult with our National Register coordinator, Jenny, before submitting the application.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mary. Any questions or comments from council members? Yes, Paul.
Just Mary, one question. The work effort necessary for a National Register nomination versus a state nomination, can you just illustrate like the order of magnitude increase that's involved? Trying to benchmark where things fall. If you're going for just the state nomination, would it be a similar expenditure versus going for the national?
Okay, and Jenny might want to pop in here. We don't want
Sure.
to call it just the state because, you know,
Yeah,
very
I
important
can-
resources.
I can pop in. So when we get a request to nominate something, Marina and I will encourage National Register listing if something rises to that level. And so we generally always recommend National Register if we think it's possible for that property to achieve that status. In terms of level of effort, you have to do similar documentation and research for either type of designation, but the National Register process is a little bit more rigorous. So while both forms are similar and rely on field work and research and scholarship, the National Register does have some additional steps. So it's going through the State Review Board instead of the council. There are more rounds of editing typically. And it's just a little bit more robust documentation and ultimately goes to the National Park Service for approval. So there are some additional steps in there. So they can be a little more expensive because that results in a little bit more hours for the consultant.
Thank you, Jenny.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from council members?
I have one.
Yes, Christine.
The requirement for public access, is that more easily met by churches because of services, or is that, or are there additional events or hours required?
I'm not sure that NR requires public access. I know our
Oh.
HR, yeah.
Maybe I'm
but
mixing it up with survey and planning.
yeah, our historic resources, historic restoration fund grant does.
Okay.
And for example, it is easy for churches to meet that requirement because all are welcome every Sunday or whatever, you know. And so, but for other organizations, we do require like a at least a 12 times a year opportunity for the public to see the funded work.
Well, I'd just like to say, I don't know how this is not already on the National Register. It's the most fantastic building. I love
Can I
it.
just add, the funded work in this case is a document that is publicly available.
Mm.
It's not bricks and mortar work. So the public requirement is met through sharing the nomination, which is always available online.
Marguerite, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say it's a fantastic building and I'm really happy to support this grant.
I agree. Any other questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next item on the agenda is 5B5. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Historic Rowayton, project consulting services for a CFR qualified architect / engineering team to prepare a condition assessment of the Seeley Dibble Pickney House circa 1820 located at 177 Royton Avenue in Norwalk. Grant amount $7,500. May I have a motion to move this to the table for discussion?
Sarah, so moved.
And a second?
Marguerite, so moved. Excuse me, Marguerite, second.
Thank you. And Mary?
So staff does recommend approval of this application. To Sarah's earlier point, a $15,000 condition assessment seems a little light. It is a smallish house. They've been using it as a headquarters for the last 50 years. They don't have any plans to change its use. And they did arrive at that budget by sort of some verbal consulting in the field. So, but if they're awarded the grant, you know, I'll need to work with them on the RFP to manage expectations. I don't think, since the house is occupied right now and has been occupied, I don't believe that there will be a, you know, a lot of investigatory work, but you know, I'll work with the applicant or the grantee to fashion an appropriate RFP. Todd Bryant and Wendell Livingston had hoped to be here, but I don't believe either one of them are on the call with Roy.
I'm here, Mary.
Oh, okay, so Todd Bryant is here,
Mhm.
who I believe is the project
Consultant.
helping with the application.
Yeah,
So.
I'm the consultant, yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah, it is quite a small building. It looks, if you've seen the application and you've seen the pictures, it looks better than it actually is. It has a number of you know, problems that they've identified over time, and that they've gotten various you know, estimates for, but none of it is coordinated. So I advise them to apply for this grant and to get a building assessment, so they have an idea of the whole scope of what they're going to need. And then they can, you know, they can proceed in a kind of an orderly way to get the stuff done, you know, prioritize what needs to be done now and all of those things. And we talked to a couple of architects, and they, you know, that's the number that we kept, you know, that was pretty much agreed on, since it is a small house and there's not a whole lot to it, that this relatively low number is what they came up with. Now, it may or may not work out to be that way, but that was, you know, we looked around and that's what it came to. So that's what we asked for.
Great, Todd. Thanks. That's helpful. Beth, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. Todd, I have a question for you on this. Not that it necessarily matters to the approval of the grant or not, but the facade of the house looks more mid 19th century than 1820s. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, and if this assessment was intended to inform anything on dating in any way.
I really don't know. I really didn't approach it that way. It's listed as 1820 it's in a district, and that's the date that it has in the district. So we really didn't question that. Fair
enough. Thank you.
Paul?
Just to Mary's point about funding of assessments, there's quite a spectrum on buildings where you've got this type of building where it's been occupied, small in scope. The organization is ongoing, looking for kind of like the 5-year, 10-year window of what's necessary for maintaining it properly, versus, you know, the opposite end of the spectrum where you've got a building that hasn't been inhabited for a number of years, and just to get it habitable is going to require an extensive amount of investigative work. So I think just understanding that there are a various level of needs on all of these assessments, you know, the funding may be appropriate in this case versus something that clearly is about to fall over, and we're trying to, you know, determine how it can be used in the future and get it back operational in some way or other.
Thank you. That's pretty much the way we looked at it too.
Thanks, Paul. Are there any other questions, from council members? Comments?
So with this grant, you're gonna identify the entire scope, correct? Make sure.
That's the idea, yeah, to really take a look at all the systems and the structure and, figure out what the issues are and then, go to the next step, which would be plans and specs. And then the next step, which would be HRF grants to actually do the work.
Any other questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Next item on the agenda is 6B1, a State Register of Historic Places nomination. I'm not quite sure who's leading that one.
It's Marina, Tom.
Marina. Marina, do you have the resolution that you can read for us?
Sure. Let's see. Okay, so the state register nomination for the Dorothy L. and John J. Parker House, 4 Haddam Neck Road, East Hampton, to the State Register of Historic Places. The Historic Preservation Council votes to list the Dorothy L. and John J. Parker House, located at 4 Haddam Neck Road, East Hampton, to the State Register of Historic Places.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion to move this to the table for discussion?
So moved, Christine.
And a second?
Paul?
Thank you. Okay, Marina.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Staff recommends approval of listing of the Dorothy L. and John J. Parker House, located at 4 Haddam Neck Road, East Hampton, under Criterion 1 and 2 at the local level in the areas of social history and architecture, as an intact example of an 18th century house remodeled in the colonial revival style popular during the early 20th century. Alterations to the property are in keeping with the colonial revival aesthetic movement. Because of this, the property maintains its integrity of location, setting, design, workmanship, feeling, and association of a home reflecting the romanticized ideal of the United States and Connecticut's founding as a popular aesthetic movement in the early 20th century, which is further augmented by the presence of the associated outbuilding. Renee Tribert, author of the nomination, is here to help me and to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Council members, questions, comments? Beth.
I just wanted to send some kudos to Renee on this one. It's so refreshing to see acknowledgement of that colonial revival period reflected in a state register nomination. It's something that, I think we've somewhat come to terms with, but just to see that level of analysis when we're looking at historic buildings and acknowledge it is really exciting. So thank you for pulling all of that together.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I also have to commend Renee. This was a really difficult nomination that we had been working on for quite some time, and really Renee did a lot of background work to be able to fully contextualize that colonial revival movement and modification of this idealized, romanticized home. And she really did a really wonderful job. And she also provided some of that nuance about really that romanticized ideal within the changes of the early 20th century, and also coinciding with all the major anniversaries as well, not just saying that it's related to the centennial, of the third quarter of the 19th century, but really also George Washington's bicentennial, our state's 300th anniversary, really contextualizing all of that. So again, more kudos to Renee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Paul, I see your hand is up.
Yes. In the listing, it says the period of significance is the 1931-33 1933 era, based on the renovations for the Colonial Revival. What, since this building does date back, does that should that include both versus just being kind of a new construction Colonial Revival that was built in the 1930s?
So I think based on the narrative of significance, and Renee, feel free to jump in if you'd like to augment this, because a lot of the characteristics that were present in the as that 18th century home, because they were so heavily modified using this romanticized aesthetic, the choice was to choose that as the period of significance, since really we don't have, and Renee kind of mentioned in the summary of the architecture significance, it's really no longer an intact example, of that really early period house anymore. It is this kind of it is a romanticized aesthetic of it, and that's why we chose those dates rather than referring back. But what we could do, and again, it might be a little tricky because, as Renee mentions in the nomination, there's no exact date of construction. That also provides it a little bit of a difficulty. We could perhaps put a note that we have a circa date of initial construction of the main block. She does spell it out in the nomination, but we could put that in as significant dates, and then as also have the rehab dates. Yeah.
Right. I guess my point is that this was a modification to an earlier structure versus a standalone Colonial Revival, new build in that style. So if somebody was looking for just Colonial Revival, there were like two different categories, right? There was a huge movement to start from scratch in the Colonial Revival style versus taking something that does have a much longer history, which you can actually see within the exposed timbers within the house and kind of the evolution over time. So I think it's kind of a specialized category within the Colonial Revival movement, which I think is just good to kind of note in some way, not just within the text, but in a period of significance, that it's a modification to.
So
we
sorry, go ahead,
did point
Renee.
that out in the nomination, that it was a colonial revitalization of an 18th century, building. So I don't know if that addresses it, but that we're very specific.
So I think, Paul, what we can do is that because within the state register nomination, there really is no true period of significance on the form, it's significant dates. I think we can give an estimate of construction. And we've done that in other nominations where there have been substantial modifications. So we can do initial construction date or estimate of construction date, and then the dates of the remodeling. I think that'll help clear it up on the form for anyone looking.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, just to acknowledge that in the form that it does date back, and it's not like my house built in 26. That it's in the style, but it was a total recreation. But you actually get a much longer history in this particular structure as well.
Sure.
Great, Paul, thank you. Marguerite, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I had the same comment as Paul, that if we could just add in the significant date section, just an estimated or range of estimated construction dates for the original house or major modifications, that would just be helpful. And thanks for that clarification, Marina, on that they're not actually being a specific period of significance. That's good to know too. Really, really strong nomination. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this, and the all of the context on the Colonial Revival was really, really well done. The only other comments I have are copy editor in nature, just in section 10, if we could add the acreage of the property. And in the title of the house, I don't know if we want to capitalize the H in Parker House, but these are very, very minor comments. It's a terrific nomination.
Thank you, Christine. I see your hand is up.
Do you think we could add site visits to our agenda from now on? Because this house is delicious. I just want to get in there and touch it and feel everything. Renee, I loved reading this, and I wondered, did you have any thoughts about the wall coverings, the wallpaper? And there's one area that looks, is it a mural or by the stairs?
That's yeah, that's a wallpaper, a scenic wallpaper, and I'm just, you know, I did some research on the wall coverings, but I'm not. It's not my area of expertise. It may be later than that 1930 colonialization work. I don't know enough.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Okay, just a personal interest of mine. Thank
But
you.
it's a very interesting house and difficult to read. There's a lot to read in that house, and trying to piece it together was really interesting. And looking to things like wallpaper to see if I could, you know, date. But
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Renee, I just have one question. I'm intrigued by the barn, and I'm wondering if there is a way to clarify better what century it was built in. Because you have the 18th or the 19th century.
Admittedly, I wound up getting so lost in the house that I did not spend a lot of time on the barn. I know that there have been changes to the barn. We assume that it's 18th century with 19th century remodeling, but that's something I can try and look a little more closely at, if that's for the nomination.
I'm intrigued by it. If you can do it, great. I don't think I want to let that hold up getting this filed. Certainly not approved for today. Any other questions or comments from council members?
I was just going to ask if Beth, I see that Beth Ackley took some photos in the barn. Did you have any comments on the age of the barn based on the structure?
Well, it was funny because when I visited maybe 5 years ago, the house was empty. It has since been purchased, and it was overgrown, and I didn't even recognize it when I first started, until I got to that picture and I saw the credit and I said, oh my gosh, it was really funny. I could certainly go back and look at the photos, and I mean, my gut is that it's, late 1800s. But I don't have any, and I could even go back and look in my notes, but nothing is at the top of my brain at the moment. So
yeah,
Renee,
I'm looking at your report, Beth, to see if you mention anything about dating on the barn, and I don't think you did. Sorry, trying to do this quickly. Yeah, you didn't at the time of the report. It looks like.
Feel free to give me a buzz. I can look through the photos and see if there's any insight there.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the nomination. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Via Ducier?
Nice work. Aye.
Paul Butkus?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell?
Great job, Renee. Aye.
I will abstain. Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Renee.
Thanks.
Yes, congratulations.
Next item on the agenda is threatened properties with an update from Todd Levine.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Jonathan. Todd did not have a report to make today, so I am gonna skip right to mine, if that's okay, Tom.
So, no, that's fine, Jonathan. So does that mean there's no potential SEPA for November?
That is my understanding. That is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Christine is very happy.
Go ahead.
If anything changes, we will certainly let you guys know ASAP.
All right, thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. Jonathan Kinney here with the SHPO report. Just a couple quick things for you. Andy Horowitz, who you met briefly at the last meeting, has been appointed the new state historian. He will be taking over for Walt Woodward. He is not at today's meeting because of the holiday, but he plans to join us in November, and we will give him a proper welcome at that point. Couple updates on some events that I had mentioned at the last meeting. The October 1st Saturday in the Park event actually ended up getting rained out, unfortunately, but it has been rescheduled to October 15th. That is the Olmsted event that we were planning in Lewis Fulton Memorial Park in Waterbury. The new date is Saturday, October 15th, and that is from 12 to 4. And I will send you guys out the updated information on that in case anybody is interested in attending. I hope you guys can make that. Also, this coming Saturday is the Archaeology Fair at Old Newgate Prison. Also a great public event, family friendly. That is from 10 to 4 on Saturday. And then the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I just want to throw this out there and you guys can discuss as a group, or we can have a follow-up discussion at a later meeting, but we did have a successful test of a first successful test of our hybrid meeting technology, which we are hoping to take advantage of moving forward. And that we had the State Review Board meeting on September 16th. It's a small group, but the meeting went well. We had several board members who were present at the meeting at our office here in Hartford, and other board members and guests who participated remotely. So I wanted to throw that to the council to see if you wanted to discuss the possibility of having hybrid meetings. If you're comfortable remaining remote, that's fine, but wanted to put it out there as an option. I know sometimes meetings are easier to run, easier to hold in person. So I open that up to council discussion.
Okay. Beth, question?
Jonathan, could you just describe what is that technology? How does it work?
So it's essentially a glorified device that looks like an Alexa tower, sort of. Combination of speakers and cameras. It sits in the middle of the table, and we hook it up to our laptop so everyone can see and hear everyone interacting, either whether they are in the room or whether they are remote. It actually highlights 3 or 4 people who are speaking or have spoken recently, so you have a good view of people in the room. And it allows us to have a little bit of flexibility, which is great if people wanted to meet in person. So any questions or concerns about that? I don't know if you guys want to look ahead.
One last follow-up question to that. How do the people sitting around the table see the remote people?
Sure. So there's a screen up on in the front of the room where the laptop screen is projected, essentially.
Okay.
So the people in the room are seeing the people remotely.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
V, question?
What's the name of it again? Hybrid?
A hybrid meeting, essentially a mixture of remote and in person.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jonathan, the one question I have for you is one of the things I like about the way we do it now is when we have a question, staff can throw up a picture or a map or something. Yeah. Would that capability still be something that could be utilized with half of us in office and half of us via remote?
Yes, absolutely. It would be essentially shared to the group. So you would see that on the big screen in the room, and also the folks viewing from home would see that on their individual screens as well.
Okay, great.
And Jenny managed that meeting. I don't know if she had anything to add. I just saw her pop up on screen. Anything to add?
No, it's just a way to allow in-person, digital on Teams and by phone. And the view that you should have at home is there's a panorama of the room at the top, and then you will also see who's speaking. So you should be able to see the whole room, and the room can see you. The only other thing that IT mentioned is that if there's a large number of people, like 50 or something, it may not pick up the sound at the back of the room. So the solution to that would just be to come up to the table to speak, as we used to do anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, I see you have a question.
If we go that way, I'm just wondering if, for people who may not be used to this technology, if the week before a meeting we could have, for anyone who was interested, like a trial, just to kind of log on, get a sense of how everything works.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do a test run.
And I'm including me in this trial.
I would say, I'll just jump in and say, the people who are going to be on Zoom will see no difference basically from your regular Zoom meeting. It will be identical because it will happen seamlessly. The people who will be in the room will be able to see on a big screen what we are each individually seeing on our Zoom screens right now. So totally happy to have a trial. This is, I just want to point out, this is the type of technology that teachers have now been teaching with in the classroom and have been forced to use for 2 years. So once you see it in action, you will have a much, maybe a deeper respect, not that you all don't have a deep respect, but a deeper respect for the challenges of what leading a classroom has been like over the past 2 years. Because it is, you know, it is now the person who is managing the meeting is managing people in person, but also people who are remoting in. So it's a little, it is trickier to manage. So be prepared for the first meeting to be, you know, just we'll all give grace. I always say that we all just give grace.
And I would like to request that the chair does not do both.
No, we would certainly run the technology for you, Tom. That's not a problem.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Jonathan, do you have anything else?
No, that was it, Tom. So I will put that out there. You guys think about it. You know, certainly reach out to me if you have any questions. If nothing moves before the next meeting, we can maybe take it up and discuss it further. But thank you very much.
So I would go ahead, Christine.
Just one quick question. Could you repeat the name of the new state historian?
Yes, Andy Horowitz.
Horowitz. Okay.
Yes, Horowitz.
And is he also affiliated with the university? Is that how that works?
Yes, I believe he's an associate professor there.
Okay, neat.
Yep.
Marguerite, I saw you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering in this general discussion of meeting, whether there was any thought given to going back to alternating between meeting in person and virtually every other month like we used to.
That is absolutely an option. I wasn't here for that, but yeah, I'd be interested in hearing about how that worked and if people would be interested in that setup as well. I'm open to any suggestions.
Okay, and I would like to say that I've never met Jonathan in person and several council members in person. So I look forward to that as well. Liz, do you have a report on museum properties?
I do, and I'll be quick. Hi, everybody. So apologies for not sending a report for the September meeting, but I'll keep my update as short as possible. You know, I love this topic. So visitation for summer at the museums and in general was on track for the last year from June to Labor Day. So that is a good thing. But as I did mention last June, we operated in a short staffed way, especially for Newgate for the entire season. And we worked around a few staff COVID cases. Luckily, we only had to close the museums unexpectedly 3 times, and that's across 4 museums, which I think is pretty amazing. And I just want to give a shout out to our staff who really deserves appreciation for their work in really challenging situations. The museums, as usual, will close I always say on or around November 1st, depending on their own particular schedules. Just to give you some highlights of what's been happening at the Prudence Crandall Museum, Joni has had on the weekends an average of, between 1 and 3 tours per day. We're not really pushing the fact that the museum is open because the visitor experience, because there's no exhibits in the museum right now, but visitors who are having the guided tour are staying. They're coming and they're taking this 45-minute experience and sometimes stretching it out to double that time because they're so interested in the dialectic process that we're using now. So I think it's going to be a huge success. We have had about 25 students from the local elementary school held a back to school kind of a service event there in September. They helped clean out, mulch, plant, and prepare the new Peace Garden that we have installed on the site permanently. That surrounds the Peace Post, I think that's what it's called, that we installed right before the museum closed. And it's just really nice to have the local elementary school being involved in the museum, once again thought of as having local ties to the town, which is just great. Still having issues with the HVAC system. And someday I'm going to just tell you that all the issues with the HVAC system have been resolved. And I look forward to that day. Newgate is prepped and open for Halloween with a real new take on our holiday experience. Halloween at Newgate was a big deal. And it was really, I'm not going to say a thrills, but it was definitely kind of a took the aspect of being an old prison museum with a very lurid past to all new heights. And that was part of really how Halloween was presented there. With our new interpretation, where we're really trying to look at the people who were incarcerated there as human beings, and in some ways as victims of a society that had some real harsh punishment going on. This year, instead of defaulting to sort of skeletons and reenactors, we decided to go a different way. And so we have partnered with a company that does lit up displays of jack-o'-lanterns. So we have 350 lighted jack-o'-lanterns in the mine. They're not real pumpkins. They're sort of carved fake pumpkins. And so that's open from now until the end of the month, and visitors come and take a tour of it. It opened last weekend, and this is a real pilot. We weren't sure what people would think, but we really make it clear to them that, you know, they're experiencing the mine in another way, and we really set the tone of the visit before people go down. And people have really been liking it. It had a very successful opening weekend. Fox 61 heard about it, came out and did a piece on it Monday. They really liked it and did and the piece broadcast, I think, on Monday. So it has had really good ticket sales. It's allowing us to sort of really talk about the real facts and the real history behind the prison, but let people enjoy the site or experience the site in a different way. So this is, again, an evolving interpretation. At the Henry Whitfield Museum, the museum's Welcoming Week event took place on September 10th. I think I spoke about that in August. About 200 people came. Lots of different organizations were on site to take part. And just as a reminder, Welcoming Week is there to sort of make sure that people who are new to our communities, particularly immigrants, feel like they have a place in communities. And this is a key part of the museum's mission, to look at the colonial revival, as we were speaking about before, from its very roots, and to really address those roots, and to address the immigrant experience. So that went really well. That is going to be a part of our ongoing work. The end of the official season signals the beginning of Michelle Parrish, our curator there, really getting into gear with this Park Service America 250 grant project to address a lot of the infrastructure issues at the museum and get us really ready to be open for let's just say the 250. At Eric Sloan, this is kind of interesting, so I'm going to just tell you a little bit more about it. The museum hosted a tattoo artist historian. He's an artist and a historian, and he creates line drawings, tattoos inspired by early New England folk art, traditional maritime themes, and also, and he has used Sloan-related images. So we set this program up as an artist in residency program. So the artist came to the museum a few times, got up close and personal with the collection, and then created 3 to 4 pieces of what we're calling flash art, inspired by Sloan's works and the whole museum collection, and it designed to be tattoos. And so the artist is going to right now displaying the finished work and the examples of all the steps in creating the images that would be tattooed. The pieces are on display as a temporary exhibit in the studio, in the hallway leading to the studio, with text explaining how the program and early forms of tattoos and methods of tattooing in the United States have a long tradition with Native peoples and even later Europeans. So we're really excited about this. The idea is that the guests are going to pick one piece from the work that they identify with and want to have added to the museum collection, and then the museum will retain that piece with the most votes, return the remaining pieces to the artist. And we hope to use this as a pilot for further artist in residency programs. And of course, the artist is getting compensated for this. And I will share the design with you at the next council meeting in case you're thinking about getting tattooed. So that is it for my report. Some really interesting and new things happening at the museums, and I'm always excited to talk about them.
Great, Liz. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Liz? Next on the agenda is liaison with public and private agencies. Jane Montanaro. Hi, Jane.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For Preservation Connecticut, just thank you to Jonathan for announcing the dates. The next 2 Saturdays are going to be lots of fun. I'm looking forward to being at Newgate this Saturday for the archaeology fair and the pumpkin tour. And the next Saturday in Waterbury. Good thing we had a rain date because it did come in handy knowing that we had that all set up to fall back on. So I hope to see a lot of you in Waterbury on the 15th. And then I also have Connecticut Preservation Actions announcement. Annual meeting and fundraiser will be on Thursday, October 27th at Parkville Market in Hartford from 4 to 7, tours and redevelopment plan discussion by Carlos Muta. He'll be leading the tour for us, and registration will open soon. So a nice chance to get out and see that awesome Parkville Market. It's a lot of fun there.
Thank you, Jane. Any questions for Jane, council members? Next on the agenda is notification of our next meeting is Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, 9:30. And I guess we're going to decide as a group how and where we're going to meet. So we'll do that. And then the last item on the agenda is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Christine.
Marguerite, second.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a good day.
Too.
Bye, everybody.